Hey guys, it is RCK and I'm glad to have you back here again. Today we're going to be doing our tier list for early age. I remember I put up a poll a long time ago when we hit 400 subscribers. Haven't really had a whole lot of time to get around to it, but today we are going to be doing it. Do I want to start with just the first one here, or do I just want to start with any kind of random one? Let's start off with Arco. So the things we have with Arco high astral magic, of course. Past that, I mean, their mystics are very, very strong. They do have mage engineers, which give them mason, siege bonus, and whatnot. Siege bonus not as important, but mason is kind of important. They have their Oriids that give them good cross paths of nature. High nature of being at least 3 could get you up to 4. Gives you a water cross path, cast foul vapors. It gives you pretty decently high air. Um, I don't think their early game is too bad. I mean, honestly, the early game for them with their Wind Riders are fairly strong. Pretty solid nation. I feel like this definitely gives it like an A tier spot here. Not necessarily S, but A tier for sure. Good early game. Pushes you into decent mages in the mid game. But past that, you're not doing anything too broken, so it's not really. I don't think an S tier. Like you're not just gonna run away with the game. I think it's still fairly powerful, but I don't feel that you're just gonna completely run away. Next, let's go for Ermor. Ermor. I've almost won one game with Ermor before. I've played them a little bit. I think one was a sub game. No, I think it was just a sub game. Yeah, I almost won a sub game with them. Very, very close. I feel like just the diplomacy really screwed me over in the end. Even though I told people this dude's fucking winning, let's get him. It happens. You have fire, astral, death. You have a summon that will give you water, earth, nature. You actually get pretty decently high death, being at least death 3. You could random a death 4. But when death 3, you already have death 4 with a skull staff, so that gives you access to rigor mortis, darkness, really good death spells like that. You also have a small amount of air as well, which you could use to kind of boost up with your communions that you're able to have. You do have your augurs, which are astral 1 fire ones, your augur elders, which are the death air randoms you may get. Uh, their lineup is pretty good. I mean, the mages aren't the best, but their lineup in the early game is pretty good. I mean, your Principes, your Hastades, all your Romanist type troops, your Equites of the Sacred Shroud, pretty good cavalry unit. I guess you don't want too much of you don't want to lean on them too hard, but in early game they can get you there. They can save you for some early rushes, I feel. But honestly, I give Ermor a B. Um, Not necessarily something I go after very often. Could do well in some games, but I mean, you got to work hard at it. They're not just going to give you the game for sure, so you have to keep that in mind. Next, we have a nation that, unless you're playing in DE, it's going to be very, very difficult. I'm going to pick Ulm next, just because that's the next name in the mod inspector as I look through that in the background as you guys watch this. I could switch over to it, but there's Ulm right there. And honestly, I'm going to give Ulm a C. I played a sub game in them, and I felt like they were played pretty strong. But honestly, other than that, other than your cheap thugs, your cheap items you can make, your mages really are terrible. I mean, you get Earth ones with some random, maybe a chance to random like a fire, one nature, one earth, one fire. You can have like an earth, air, earth, water, earth, double earth, or earth fire, which is not great. Those are your warrior smith. You have your antlered shaman, which are your 2-turn mages. So I'm pretty sure they're 2-turn mages, which is only a earth 2, nature 2, with a 10% chance to random fire, earth, death, or nature. So not even that great. You have shamans, which are just 2-path mages. If you get lucky, they could be a 3-path, but those 3 paths, I mean, Not a whole lot you can do. You can random double death, which would be pretty good. I mean, past that, their units are mediocre. Um, your warriors, I feel like your warriors are pretty strong, or maybe it's axe warriors, mountain warriors. There's one of them. Maybe it's mountain warriors, axe warriors. Those units are pretty strong. They're stealthy. But past that, your sacred's kind of crap. I guess your steel maidens are okay. Shield maidens, eh. You don't really want to do archers because archers fall off in the mid game. You have your iron warriors that have the maul, which hit pretty hard, but okay. Steel warriors, very expensive two-handed two-handed unit. That is your sacred. Eh. Cap only. Eh. Not that great, honestly. Um. So yeah, that's why I give Ulm a C. Very. I wish he did a little bit more in the early game, or not in the early game, in the early age, but we're just not seeing it. So that's where we're gonna place him. Next we have Marverni. Very strong astral nation, as you may know. They get the boars from their summons. They get the great boar, which will then summon more boars around it for Dominion. So you can go with a bless with the Marverni and stuff like that. And I know some people theorycraft Marverni like crazy, and they do all this kinds of cool stuff with it, and they really test their stuff out. And I mean, you can do that for any nation, okay? Um, but mediocre troops, as far as their lineup goes, fairly weak in the early game. Their mages are pretty decent, and I feel like they get much stronger into the mid to late game, especially if they were able to win their first war, maybe get a second cap, really be able to like hold Mother Oak, get a bunch of boars. I mean, they can be fairly strong, but they're very weak in the early game. I feel compared to other nations in EA. Uh, Maybe C, but above. I put them in B. I'll put them in like a low B. I feel would be good. Next we have Sauromatia. Where is their flag at? Right there. The one that has like a little dragon type thing, kind of brown. Um, what can I say about them? Strong sacreds. Of course, you have your what are they called? What are they called? Not man flayers, not raiders. Goodness, where are they at? Orapadas. Orapadas. Pretty strong sacred. Definitely can be used. Don't they have two sacreds? Don't they have a... Where are you at? They have hydras, which is kind of like a interesting thing, I guess. Not necessarily that great. They have man flayers, which are sacred, cap only. Very expensive though, so yeah. Andraphag, Andraphag, Andrahag. I don't really know how to pronounce them. 55 gold. That's their sacred unit. The Manflayer is the commander, I suppose. Their Witch King and their other mages are fairly strong, though. 90% chance on Thusair to just random one astral, just a 35 gold mage. Very, very cheap. Other than that, you have your Warrior Priestess, which will make great thugs. You're going to have either nature or water that can do. What's it called? Oh, goodness, I forget what it's called, this spell. You can get blood randoms on them, you can get death randoms on them, you can get nature 2s. You have the Aneri, which are Astral 1, Death 2, Nature 1s, which are going to be great Horde of Skeletons casters. They can communion up. You have Spirit Guides, which is just Death 1, not as important. Next, you have a Witch King, Death 3, Blood 1, Nature 1 that could random up to Death 4, Nature 2, Blood 2. I mean, he has a 10% past that to get extra paths along with that. So, very, very strong mage as well, the Witch King. So, honestly, I'll put Sauromatia up here at A. I almost feel like I'd almost put Sauromatia in front of Arco Sofali. I feel like they both have very strong early games, but with the access to blood that Sauromatia already has, I think will push them higher into A tier than Arco Sofali would. That's how I feel about that. So what do we have next on the list? We have Tianqi. So Tianqi has a lot of one-path mages in it. Master of 5 elements, Celestial Master, like 1 fire, 1 air, 1 water, 1 earth, 1 nature. And then same thing for the Celestial Master, just 2 water, 1 astral, 1 air, 1 fire. The Master of Away, which give you a couple paths with that water. And the Master of a Dead, which is just a D1. And you have some summons that can get you like nature 3s. I think their summons are really good, like Demons of the Heavenly Rivers, Heavenly Fires. I don't really know about Celestial Servants, but I know Celestial Soldiers are really strong. So I'll give them that. They do have some pretty decent summons that you can put blesses on because those are all sacred units. As far as their as far as their sacred goes, which is, where are you at? Warrior of 5 elements, very, very killy. With those 2 short swords, size 2 unit, you can get a lot of them into a square that can do some damage to some stuff. So pretty decent sacred there too. I mean, they can put up some decent defense magic as long as they get like, what would they be really worrying about in the beginning? Maybe like foul vapors early on, which you have a few nature mages that can help put down some resistances for that. Oh goodness, I almost forgot about the nobles too. Those heavy cav noble chariots that they have are fairly strong as well. So those are also something that you should look into if you want to play TNG. Honestly, TNG's not bad. Their mages are a little lackluster. Their lineup for troops are pretty good. I'd put them in B tier if I can find them. Oh, they are. I'll put them in B tier. Honestly, I think they're better than Marverni early game. And it's tough to win if you're not strong in the early game. If you can't get to the late game. I think Ermor might have a better early game than they do, though. Okay. Next, we have Machaka. Of course, a nation I've thought was also pretty interesting. You have lots and lots of paths. You have like a Lion Queen who has Fire 3, Earth 1, Nature 2. You have a Lion King who has Fire 2, Earth 1, Nature 3. So it depends on if you want higher fire or higher nature on which one you want to take. Next, you have the Spider Clan Sorcerer, which is a Fire 1, Death 1, Nature 1, a Buddha that has, honestly, I mean, Earth 2, Death 2 is pretty strong with a chance to random an extra Fire, Earth, or Death. So Earth 3, Death 3. Horde of Skeleton Caster or Buffer, depending on if he has Earth or Death. Next, you have the Hyena Clan Witch Doctor, which is just a straight up Death 2. Yeah, they are kind of expensive since they're not sacreds at 165 and 215 gold, but it is what it is. Voice of the Lion, which is a nature 1. That is a great swarm caster in a pinch. Also, probably going to be your research monkey for sure. As far as their other units, Pygmies are very good, especially with flaming arrows. It'll get you to the middle game or mid game. It won't help very much in the late game, but in the middle, early to mid game, tons of Pygmies with flaming arrows up might be a first thing to go for, If not, Swarm. For troop lineup, you have elephants. You can do elephant expansion, which isn't bad. Spider Riders are decently good as well, but you have your Lion Warriors that hit so hard, and I think their clubs deal fatigue damage, so that's a pretty interesting way. Maybe a good thing to try to kill thugs with, since they do hit so hard. You hit them on that fatigue side. So yeah, very nice little lineup that Machaka has. Overall, I do think they have kind of a weaker early game, though. So I'll put Machaka into higher C tier. Almost B tier, honestly. Yeah, they do kind of have a weak early game, just kind of like Marverni. So we'll leave them there in C tier for now. Next, we're going to look at Mictlan. I do enjoy some Mictlan. An early age Mictlan is very, very strong. All of their mages are going to have paths in like 2 nature, 2 water, 2 astral, 2 fire, and then they're going to have just blood 2 past that. So all these blood mages are going to be great. Blood 3, you're going to have a fire 2, blood 3, holy 3, so you're going to have a divine blessing whenever you need it. You can get an astral 3, nature 3, from a summon, not too bad. You have tons of blood summons that will get you cross paths and everything that you need. You have great summons past that, honestly, as far as your troop lineup goes. You have things like toads that can do poison damage, ocelotls that are so strong, beast bats that can help you in the early game. And not to mention early game, you have your Jaguar Warriors and Eagle Warriors that are so good. And honestly, EA Mictlan is probably the strongest of the Mictlans just because late age Mictlan, yeah, sure, they have the blood, they have all the summons, all that shit, but you're going to be seeing a lot more heavy cav, you're going to be seeing a lot more crossbows. And Mictlan's not going to have a lot of armor in any of the ages, so it's just the way it is, you know? So that's why I feel that early age Mictlan is one of the strongest age Mictlans, probably the strongest blood Mictlan. Um, yeah, pretty good, pretty good. So I'll put Mictlan, arguably almost C tier, or S tier. Um, High A, S. We'll put you in S for right now, because I just think Mictlan is really strong. If you don't deal with them early, which they're going to be a big pain in the ass to deal with early, they're going to wipe your ass out later on. They're just going to be able to really run away with the game, I feel. So, who do we have next here? EA Abysia, and I've seen a lot of talk about EA Abysia through the years of watching things and people testing out their burning ones. Very, very strong, sacred. They have blood summons, they have all kinds of blood stuff they can do. Their mages are pretty high fire. So fire, earth. They do have some astral and blood. Burning ones are fairly strong in the early game, but they're just a really slow nation, really slow walking. I give them a high B tier rating. They'll probably run over any of these 3 in the early game for sure. Yeah. That's kind of how I feel about them. Good B tier. I feel like there's a lot of B tier. So next, let's see what we have. I have EA Caelum. I enjoy Caelum for sure, but they are like a one-trick pony. I'll give them C tier. As much as I do enjoy Caelum, and yes, I've won games with Caelum. They have great summons, but they're just so late in the game. They have our Eagle King, which has really high air. They have their divas that have great cross paths and all their other summons, but other than air elementals, if you can stop air elementals and deal with air elementals efficiently, you're gonna kill Caelum. Like I said, basically a one-trick pony. And sure, into the late game, they got Fog Warriors and Storm and what's the lightning spell that has all the lightning bolts come down? I don't remember off the top of my head. Yeah, I mean, they get powerful as the game goes on. They get lots of cross paths as the game goes on. But honestly, if you can deal with air elementals for majority of the game, you can deal with Caelum. Their size 3 units are not great. If all you have to do is put bodyguards and a lot of units on hold and attack flyers, and they're very far back. And I mean, you're going to take care of their flyers. It's not a big deal. Elementals is the big thing that they'll have their crutch for the longest time in your game. So if you can deal with the elementals, you can deal with Caelum. That's all I kind of have to say about that there. Next we have EA Abysia. They have their Sauromancers, Shamans, which are good. I don't have Marshmasters. Marshmasters don't come to EMA, I think. They have the Reborn, which are Def 2s, which are great Horde of Skeletons casters. Very, very limited. I mean, they can do Foul Vapors fairly easily, but very limited on their magic diversity. Water, Death, Nature, and a little bit of Astral. Troop lineup, it's okay. They get some pretty good Dominions buff by giving them an increase to the gold that they have per Dominion candle and stuff like that, but I'll give them B tier. I think they're above these three right here. Good. I think they have a decent mid game, honestly. Order Skeletons, Foul Vapors, going into stuff like that. Their early game units aren't bad. As far as their late game goes, I feel like their late game is lacking, for sure. So that's how I feel about them. Next we have Pangaea. Such a good nation. I love Pangaea. Played some games with them. You have Recruit Anywhere Pans that are Nature 4 Blood ones, Earth ones that have a chance to random Nature. No, have a chance to random Earth or Blood for 100%, then 10% chance to random all three. You have your Hierophants and Hierotides that are great thugs, either Nature, Earth, or Water, Nature. You have your Seducing Dryads. You have your Dryad Mothers, that'll cast Foul Vapors. You have White Centaurs, which are so great, and they will make you get to the late game. But I mean, you'll have to depend on other things to the late game. But I mean, they're gonna get you there. They're just all around a very, very strong nation, and I do feel like they're probably one of the strongest nations in EA for sure. So if you want to hear more about them, I have done video on them. I have done an overview on them. I'm doing a game on them. I've done more than one games on them. I haven't posted more than one game, but I played more than one game. And they are very strong. Next, we have EA Agartha, which actually I just played in a Disciples game with my partner being EA Agartha. Very, very high Earth. You have some fire, water, death. Very low kind of paths in that. At most, you can get like 2s, I think, level 2s, which will give you some boosters, which isn't bad. I think you get up to like a water 3 or 4. They have their wet ones, stone hurlers, ancient lords, ancient ones, which are sacred. They have their great Ulms, which are pretty good in expansion. They have seal guard. Their Earth Readers are pretty... No, not Earth Readers. Which one? Engravers. They're pretty cheap researchers that you have. The Umbrals are strong. Living Mercuries, which aren't... I don't think Living Mercuries are the best. I think the Umbrals are better than the Living Mercuries as far as your summons go. But, where would I place Agartha? I don't know. I was really surprised with them in that Disciples game. I felt like they were pretty strong. I'll put them in A tier. Low A tier. Yeah, I feel like they're more of a low A tier. High B tier. And I'll put them in high B tier. Yeah, high B tier. I think that will fit them well. Next, we have Teir, which I have won a game with as well. You have your Tuatha Sorceress, which is a very great mage. It's only cap only, so it's unfortunate. The Bean City here. Pretty decent mage as well. Air 1, Water 1, Nature 1 with chance to random all those again along with Earth. You have your blog druids, which are very cheap researchers. You have your uh, bow Bayhan city here, which are your assassins that they can do elementals and the elementals as assassination, which is fairly strong. You have your city lords that are great thugs you can use as raiders. You have your which can get pretty decently high pat, like an air 3 would be pretty good, and also a nature 3 is pretty strong. You have your Tuatha warriors that have pretty high defense skill. They also have glamour, so like an elven unit. Uh, pretty good, average I feel. But I think they're somewhere around here. Yeah, in between like an Ermor Satis. Maybe better than Satis. No, well they have death. They have air. Tough to say which one's better. But yeah, somewhere in this kind of area. Yeah, seems like a good spot right there. Let's see who we have next. Fomoria. Fomoria, if you're not familiar with them, is a giant nation. It has Fomorian kings, which are air 3s, def 2s, priest level 2s, and they can random air, water, death. So you can have Wind of Death caster, you can have Wailing Winds caster, you can have Corpse Construct casters from other mages, not just them. You have other, like a Numidian champion can be your Corpse Construct caster. For Chaff, you have Stygian Range, which could be a good path to go down and get. Gives everything invulnerability. And so if you have magic weapons, you're not worried about it. Same goes for your opponent, though. So you do have to keep that in mind. I will put Fomoria as an A-tier nation. Is their expansion as strong as, say, Wind Riders? No. But I feel like their late game's pretty damn strong. So I feel like they should be a good A-tier nation. I need to go and give Fomoria a try. Next we have EA Vanheim. Very strong, nice Vandrodots that have blood paths that can random more blood, get up to Air 4s. You have Dwarven Smiths that can get put down buff, Van Jarls and Van Herses that are great at raiding. You have not Huskarls, you have Van here, which are so good sacreds. They're so strong. They're like blenders that walk around pretty much. And you still have Vans as well. Don't you have Vans? Am I missing something? You have the Mounted Herdman in EA Vanheim. Mounted Herdman. So it's basically a van. They all have glamour. So very sneaky elven type nation here. High Earth. Or not high Earth. Decently high Earth actually. You can get Earth 3s with boots. You get Earth 4. So decently high Earth actually. Decent at air. They have their blood. So you can easily break into blood. Or not break into, but go a blood path. With your air blood randoms, you can do storm demons, which are fairly strong. So yeah, I think as far as EA goes, I would also put Vanheim into an A tier nation. I wouldn't necessarily call them S. But I would only put Fomoria and Arco Savali farther back because they don't have blood. Yeah. So, let's see what's next. What do we have here? We have Helheim. So Helheim is pretty similar to Vanheim, other than, well, more like MA Vanheim versus EA Vanheim, because their sacreds are the Hellherdlings, which are sacred cav, versus the Van Jarls that are little blenders. But you do get death, air, blood, and earth. As far as your magic goes, pretty expensive nation, lots of expensive units here, so You're gonna need to take a lot of gold. I feel like they have a fairly strong early game. Their expansions always goes well. So I feel like Helheim is also a very strong nation here. And I would only put them in front of Arco and Fomoria just due to the fact that they have blood. They have vein Jarls. That gives them paths in the blood. That's really it. But I do think they're a strong nation there. Next, we have Niflheim, also a great contender for an A nation. You have your Nifl Jarls, you have your Geishas, you have your Skurati, which are going to be your werewolves that you can put into turbo communions, which are great. If you learn how to do it, it's definitely going to help you out. You have Rimvedia summons, I didn't notice that before. Other than that, I mean, you're going to have things like your Nifl Giants, which are decent. I mean, they're great. They're okay. I mean, their cold aura and cold 3 is definitely going to slow some guys down, gonna make some people freeze. But your Jotun warriors by themselves are going to hit pretty damn hard. They are all expensive. That you have to keep in mind they are 30, 35, 40 gold a piece. But they're looking at 30 some hit points at least. So you have to keep that in mind. Your Jotun scouts, they can be used as thugs. You can put like that little jug of water on them that gives them their bliss, whatever it may be, a couple items, and you can use them to raid provinces, no problem. Your geishas, which are uh, death, nature, blood, that has two more paths and get them, which is blood, nature, death, or astral. I mean, that's gonna be great. Your Nifl Jarls are great. I wouldn't almost say, I mean, they're going to be great thugs for damn sure. But as far as super combatants go, you'll have to put some work into them because they don't have the easiest paths there to super combatant with since they have such high water. Um, and they have water 3, death 2, they can random air, water, death. So Death 3 is not bad. Air 1's really good. You can cast some great spells with Nifl Jarls at Air 1. You can do Wailing Winds. Um, High Water's not as needed, so you have to keep that in mind. But yeah, pretty strong nation. Like I said, you get Blood. You have the Illwinter spell, which is a great spell. So yeah, I think Vanheim and Helheim have a better early game than Jotunheim does. But yeah, they get to go up there too with A. So next we have Rus. And I wish Rus was so much than what it was. So much more. I wish it was more than what it was. I'm sure people can take it and I'm sure people can play it great. But normally, people. I think the heavy blessed skin shifters is a trap. I think people rely on them too much. They are great, honestly. And then your mage lineup is kind of crap as well. You may have lots of you have like the Son of Heaven, which is a great no, it's a Percuni, which is like a great mage, but it's an Astral 1. So if you go against any Astral mages, like at most you might be getting some Astral 1 mages in there, and then they'll just magic duel you to death. And there goes your cap only mages, um, your Rusian wizard randoms that were Astral if you have them in your army. Some Thunder Priests can get them, but it's very rare, like 1 in 4 chance. You have some cool summons for Rus, but honestly, they're just kind of a crappy nation. Don't really hold up well. I'll put them higher up than Ulm, but I don't think they're better than Machaka. Next, we have Kalasa, that's what it is. Very, very strong Astral Nation, very, very high Astral. You have some really good summons later on that will break you into death and fire. Your Yaksha and Yakshini are very high water and earth mages, will also have nature randoms on them. You have gurus and yogis for very, very high Astral that you can do. You can also get nature and your. Can you get your water and earth into the communions as well? Yeah, they could random Astral. So you can also get them into the communion. So I think they're a solid B tier nation. They do have Recruit Anywhere Sacreds, which makes them a little bit better than some of these others. Um, but I mean, Astral's only going to get you but so far. I guess you really it's going to take you. It's going to be a long time before you can break into some of those other paths that you have. So yeah, I'm gonna put them as a B tier, middle of road B tier nation. I feel. It's not bad. I think it's. I mean, you have a lot. It's not. They're not easy to play. They have a lot of low protection units, so you might be taking a lot of losses there. Um, so yeah, it's okay. They have some decent mages though. Next we have Lanka, which is it has a bunch of great paths. I'll give them that. High blood, high air, decently high. Well, I wouldn't say decently high, but they do have death. Um, they have some very strong sacreds that can hit really hard. They're very expensive on the downside. I'm not going to try to pronounce their names, but there are 3 different sacreds that they have there. They have some great summon. They have some really great summons that they can get. Not necessarily troop summons, but mage summons. Like I said, Great Blood. They have Reanimating Priest, which is decent. They're not great, uh, but they're pretty good. And I mean, if you could get past the early game, nobody rushes you, or like a coalitions you out. I feel like you're B or A tier. I'll put you in A tier. And I know I say, oh, I rank Blood Nations higher, but I feel like due to the fact of Lanka having that very weak early game, I'm gonna put them at the top of B tier. Like there's a Blood Nation there in B tier. You know, it is what it is. But yeah, they have just such a weak early game. I feel like that really hurts them early on. Yeah. So now, I'm not saying that they're a weak nation. I'm just saying that they have a weak early game. They're phenomenal in the late game, but as far as early game goes, they have their troubles. And yeah, sure you can do like these super ass blesses that might be able to stop some people, but it's not going to stop everybody. Next, we're going to be looking at Yomi and their Dione that they have, which are Fire 2, Earth 2s, Death 3s that can random Fire, Air, Earth, or Death. And I know people love Yomi for the fact that you can get these Dione and use them, but honestly, I don't like their unreliability of their troops because I'm pretty sure it is how they get their free spawn and shit like that. I mean, they have their Bakumono, which are strong. You can mask them up, and they're really cheap. They have some Def 2s. The Onishugo are Def 2s. You get the Daitangu to give you high air. Some of the other summons can also get you high water, some decently high nature. If you're sorcerer, which it can also be Def 2s on some lucky randoms. But honestly, I just feel like the Dione, they're so expensive at 500 gold. People rely on them very, very heavily, and I'll give them a C tier. I don't know, maybe Ulm might be able to kick Yomi's ass, honestly. Just because of how easily Ulm is able to produce items much faster than Yomi can produce Dione, and he can just make a ton of troops that could have just great swords of sharpness kick down Dione's ass. Um, I think everything else. I think just Yomi is just a low nation on that tier list there. Honestly, other than Dione, what are they really bringing to the battle here? And even then, if you can answer Dione, you can answer Yomi. You can answer anything else they have. Just like I said, Caelum's a one-trick pony. I feel like Yomi is a one-trick pony. And just by the sense of if you can deal with their one trick, you got them. So next we have Hinnom, which is a nation that I've been playing. Or I've tried them. I think I've tried them twice, and I've lost twice. I mean, I haven't lost the. Well, maybe one time I lost the game. Maybe I tried them more than twice before. But they're a nation I've been wanting to, but it's a lot. It seems like a lot of point buffing. You have to really work on getting those Raphite warriors buffed up and sending them in. You have some decent mages, a lot of two-path mages like Nature 2. You get Earth 2, Astral 2, Air 2, Fire 2. I feel like all their mages are kind of expensive. Well, you don't have a good choice for like your research monkey, a cheap, inexpensive researcher that you can have sitting around. So all your units are kind of fairly expensive as far as that goes. None of your mages are sacred except for your Kohen, Balls, and Melkorts, which are so expensive on that upfront cost. They're not good researchers at home. And 250 gold for a 9 research a turn. It could be go from 9 to 11 with an extra path, but I'm pretty sure it's around there. Maybe 13. I'm not entirely sure. But like that's terrible. You won't be spending like damn 50 gold for 9 research a turn. They can get some cool summons later in the game, those Grigori and whatnot. So they get Sahir as well. Their Dawn Guard are pretty strong, having that Dawn Blade with that has a magic weapon attack. Their Charioteers are pretty good in the early game, I feel. It's expanding. They can get the job done pretty well. I've worked with them some. I mean, the Raphite warriors are strong, but you have to be careful because they increase unrest and they also kill population, so you don't want them sitting around in your capital. And they are only capital only units, so every turn you're making them, you're going to be using some population every month, and then moving them out still. Even if you are moving them out, you're still going to lose them since they're sitting there when turn you make them. Astral Earth Fire. I mean, that's really it. I mean, nature. And like I said, you get like level 2 on most of them. That's really not much higher. I mean, you get blood 3 on your Melkorts. And then summons if you want higher paths along with that. So Hinnom, I give him a good B tier. Just because I feel like, God, I give him an A tier. Just because those Raphite Warriors, the Charioteers, I feel like they have a good early game. And it's really up to the skill of the player at that point to take them into the late game, because the Sacred won't take you into the late game. Your Raphite Warriors themselves are not going to take you into the late game. I mean, they might kill the first person for you, but I mean, they're not going to win you the game past that. I mean, they're going to do a lot of help, but having them by themselves with not a lot of mages behind them is not going to go that great. Let's see who we have next. Goodness, so many nations here in the early game. So you're going to get high nature, decently high earth. You're going to get death randoms. You're going to get decently high water on water 2s. You can get some air randoms. You got good summons. You can get air 2s, not bad. Got good summons. You have a decent troop lineup. I mean, they're not great. They're size 3 units, so they don't go very well. You can't fit 3 to a square. You can only fit 2 to a square. Their armor is kind of crap as far as the protection goes. That is very unfortunate. I'll put him there. Well, it's a good spot for him. Not too on either side. Not too much on either side. Next we have Veritos. Interesting to see that Veritos its Telkins, but they're very late game summons. They get Melkorts as well as a summon. Cap only, Bride and Waiting, which is an Air 2, Fire 2, Earth 1, Blood 2, with a chance to random more. Stormcaller, which is an Air 2, Water 2, kind of costly though, can only be made on the coast. You have a Mage Pilot, You have the Britannian Priest here, which you can get blood 2s on that, which isn't bad. Colossi Warriors. They get some interesting summons as well. I feel like their troop lineup is kind of mediocre. Colossal Warrior. Their Sacred looks okay-ish. Their mages look fairly strong, though. I'll put Veritos here in front of Abysia. I feel like they'll do better. I don't think they'll have a terrible early game, but I think their units are decently enough to get them to the mid game. From there, they'll break into blood, or not break into it. They already have blood, but they'll do their blood stuff and get them started. There's a here very strong. You do a very strong bless with that. Just a very killy bless would get them pretty far, I feel. Next we have EA Zabalba, which has great summons. You have so many mages you can summon that can give you cross paths on what you need. You have blood, death, nature, air mages. You have fire. You have earth. You have so many paths. You have sun guides, which hit pretty hard. You have beast bats. You have jaguars. You have ocelots. You have so much stuff. You have Anarchy, which are death 3, nature 1, blood 3s, and can random all that shit, plus some fire. But I feel like they have such a weak early game. That's the only thing. I've played a game as Zabalba. I've won a game as Zabalba. And their bats are so bad. So bad. And I feel like they're just an easy target in the early game. I'll put them in C tier. Easy target in the early game. I think Caelum's a little bit better in the early game. But their blood stuff is getting them that C tier, top of the C tier list for sure. Yeah. Next we have Mekone. I don't really ever look at a lot with Mekone. I see them do well sometimes. I've seen Mekone win games before. Mekone is not a bad nation. I think the last updates they had updated this nation a little bit, made them a little bit better. They have a lot of fire on their mages and a lot of earth. They can also get some like air 2s, I feel. Yeah. Air 2s. You can get some air 2s on there. You have all these giants here, polemarks. They are fairly good thugs you can use as Earth 2, Fire 2 thugs. They have their Giganti Hoplites, which are fairly strong. They hit very, very hard. They can fit a couple to a square just because they have the, what was it called? I don't remember, Formation Fighter, that's what it's called. They have their disc throwing guys, which are interesting to see. Their mage lineup's kind of crappy, but their troops are very strong. We'll give the a low A tier nation, low A tier, just because I do think they have a decent early game. Yeah, I think they have a decent early game. Okay, so let's see what we have next. We have Ubar. Ubar. The only thing about Ubar, we'll put them in the bottom of A. They're good. They're a good nation. They're a good nation for sure. But if somebody is familiar with Ubar and you're playing in game, people are going to take Spirit Sight. People are going to take magic weapons. And they're going to fuck you up. Yeah. You get some good summons. You get your Ifrit warriors, and you get your Jinn warriors, which are very, very good units. They're great against indies. They're great against normal chaff. They're great against anything that's not a sacred that has that's built against you. Okay, and then you have Jinn Emirs and Jinn Sahirs and your sultans. Your Shaitans as well. Shaitans are really strong, and you can go in the blood with them and all this other stuff. But I feel like if they build for you, they're gonna take you out. Because normally people say Ubar, and if you don't build for Ubar, you're just gonna get hosed in that game if you start beside them. That's why people fear it. Like I say, it's a strong nation, but it can easily be countered. Easily be countered. That's the only thing about it. Like, if Arco took Spirit Sight magic weapons against Ubar, Arco is going to kick Ubar's ass. Um, Hinnom, or not Hinnom, Mekone, I mean, sure, they don't have Spirit Sight, but they do have magic weapons built in. Most of these guys are going to be able to take care of it. These guys are going to struggle. But, yeah. Next, we have Atlantis, which I think is one of the superior underwater nations. Just because they have a lot more capability as far as getting on land and being more active or threatening on land. Have their warriors in the deep one spearmen, coral guard, war shamblers, basalt kings, which are fairly good, very high, powerful mages, and mages in the deep, which are really good. Water elementals, casters. You have your basalt queens are each threes. So you always have a divine blessing or divine blessing. I'll give Atlantis an A tier. Yeah, I'll give Atlantis an A tier. They're fairly strong. Well, depends, I guess. Depends on if they are in a lake with somebody else. Depends on who that somebody else is, or it depends on if the lakes are separated in the game. Yeah. Next, we're going to have Relay, which is a really, really strong astral nation, has strong power, but I feel like their big weakness that pushes them down to the C tier, almost, oh fuck, I'd give them D tier, honestly, is that they really have troubles getting out of the water. They have so much trouble getting out of the water. Sure, your slave mages can go up, but they're not very threatening. Your mind lords and stuff like that are pretty good. I probably shouldn't be that bad on them. There you go. We give you C tier Relay. But yeah, they have so much trouble getting out of the water. Same for this next nation here. Phlegra. Pelagia? Pelagia? I don't know. But I think Phlegra is the other nation. Phasia? Whatever. And this is a notorious nation for being bad. Not necessarily the bad underwater. They're pretty good underwater. They're Triton. Their Pearl Guard. Is it Pearl Guard? I thought they had their. Maybe it is their Triton Riders. I think their Triton Riders with their Coral Lance, I think, are fairly strong. I thought they had a Sacred Underwater Cav unit. It might be MA I'm thinking of. Because here I see Pearl Guard, which are aquatic as well. But so many other units are aquatic. Very, very difficult for them to get on the water. Very difficult for them to threaten anybody but an underwater nation. That's why we're putting them in D tier. Other than that, we have Oceania, which is a underwater Pangaea, if you want to put it that way. Now, they do have a lot of amphibious troops, so they do have quite a capability to get onto land, but they're just not that good. They get high nature, but I mean, past that, sure, high water, okay. Earth too, okay. But I mean, past that, I mean, I hate to give them another D tier another D tier nation here. I think that one's worse than that one. But yeah, I mean they have the capability to get on land, but they're just not good units. They're not great, and I should probably rate relay with them as well. Sure, they might be powerful against each other underwater. They might have a lot more stuff to use against each other here, but they do not threaten the rest of the game. And they really put a threat on Therados, but normally you see Therados get picked last in a lot of games. He'd be the only water nation in there. They can have some interesting stuff. Their sacreds they can do some stuff with. They're okay. They can get Telkines, which are good. You can get a Telkine as a god, which is kind of strong. Very good mages. The Mila are very good thugs. Moss Body, that's the spell I was thinking of. They cast Moss Body, things like that on themselves. You have good mages that can be made on land that have a bonus. Do they have a bonus to building stuff? I don't remember. But they're fire, water, earth, air random as they start as a earth 1. I can give Theratos a B tier or C tier. Like I said, it's very dependent on whether Theratos is by himself or if Theratos has a partner in the water. Because all these nations can do really well at killing ghost chaff. Yeah. I give them top of C tier. So that's kind of what I feel about things. Maybe some of these other nations could be pushed up to S, I guess. But I don't like giving S away too often. I think Pangaea is probably one of the best nations in the early age. That's my personal opinion, of course. Doesn't mean it's actually true. It's just how I just kind of feel about the other ones. I mean, you have that should probably be lower. Atlantis should probably be lower. Lanka should probably be lower too. Yeah, let's do that. You should probably be lower. Honestly, you should be lower than that. I was too generous with that, Marverni. Too generous. I feel like this is a much more better looking graph or tier list here. Like I said, did really poorly, saw very poorly on the underwater nations on EA just because of how hard it is for them to do anything else but fight underwater. And Therados is good when Therados is by itself. It is what it is. I play Therados, I enjoy Therados, but it is what it is. Mictlan Pangaea on top. All these other elf type nations over here. Yeah, this looks good, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. If you, I don't know, feel like you think something should be placed somewhere else, put your ideas in the comments, I'll read them. I'll see what I think. I'll more than likely reply back to you. I try to reply back to everybody. But guys, I hope you enjoyed it. Those are kind of my ideas about it. Might be different than everyone else's. Might you see some similarities. It is what it is. Game doesn't change that often. But have a good one. See you on the next one.